Hello, welcome to another video on our channel. Here, we translate testimonies from people who have had near-death experiences and other spiritual experiences. Today, let's learn about the story of Ezekiel North. He says that he died, went to the spiritual realm, where angels revealed to him a terrible prophecy. Something devastating will happen on August 21st, 2024. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Leave a comment with your name and city. Let us now listen to Ezekiel's testimony. Hello everybody, my name is Ezekiel North, but you can call me Zeke. I am a chiropractor and medical examiner currently residing in San Francisco, California. Today, I want to share with you a story that completely changed the course of my life. A story that, for many, may seem unbelievable, but for me it is as real as the air I breathe. It all started when I was just 17 years old. He was a young man like any other, full of dreams and expectations for the future. At the time, I had no idea that my life was about to take a completely different direction. I had no idea that I would soon be face to face with death, not once, but twice. These near-death experiences not only saved my life in the literal sense, but they also gave me a purpose, a spiritual mission to help humanity. They opened my eyes to realities I didn't even know existed and set me on a path of discovery and healing that continues to this day. My journey was not easy. There were moments of doubt, fear, and despair. But there were also moments of clarity, peace, and deep understanding. Every challenge, every obstacle I faced made me stronger and more determined to fulfill the mission entrusted to me. Over the years, I have dedicated my life to learning, healing, and sharing the knowledge I have gained. I have invested time, money, and energy investigating hundreds of alternative therapeutic practices. Some worked, others didn't, but each experience taught me something valuable. Today, I'm here to share my story with you, not to brag or to seek recognition, but because I believe my experience can bring hope, comfort, and perhaps even enlightenment to those who are willing to listen. So, if you are ready, I invite you to embark on this extraordinary journey with me. A journey that started with a car accident on a rainy road and took me to places I never could have imagined. It was a rainy autumn afternoon. I had just left a party at a friend's house and was driving home. The winding road that snaked through the outskirts of San Francisco was slippery from the constant rain. Visibility was terrible, with the windshield wipers barely able to keep up with the falling water. I was tired, maybe a little distracted, thinking about the party and the friends I had left behind. It was just a moment of inattention, but it was enough. In a particularly sharp corner, I felt the tires lose grip. I tried to correct the trajectory, but it was too late. The car skidded, spinning uncontrollably on the wet road. Everything happened so fast and, at the same time, it seemed to be in slow motion. I saw the tree approaching, large and imposing, through the windshield. I heard the deafening sound of twisting metal as the car collided with the massive trunk. I felt the violent impact shake my body, the sharp pain that exploded in my chest as I was thrown against the steering wheel. And then, suddenly, everything was quiet. The intense pain I felt began to subside, being replaced by a sense of peace I had never experienced before. It was as if the entire weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. I looked at my hands and realized I wasn't afraid. The idea of death, which had always terrified me, now seemed almost comforting. It was at that moment that I realized something extraordinary was happening. It was as if my spirit was being gently pulled out of my body. I felt myself floating, rising above the scene of the accident. From above, I could see my wrecked car, wrapped around the tree like a broken toy. I saw my body limp in the driver's seat, blood dripping from a cut on my forehead. It was a surreal sight, as if I were watching a film about my own death. But there was no fear, there was no panic, just a calm acceptance of what was happening. As I floated above the crash scene, something began to change. The world around me began to dissolve, colors mixing and merging, and then, before me, a tunnel appeared. It was no ordinary tunnel, made of concrete or stone. It was a tunnel of light, bright and pulsing, that seemed to stretch infinitely. The lights in the tunnel were not static. They moved quickly, like shooting stars on a summer night. They were every color imaginable, some that I didn't even know existed. Deep blues, vibrant greens, majestic purples, all dancing and intertwining in a cosmic ballet. I felt an irresistible pull toward the tunnel. It wasn't a physical force that pulled me, but something deeper, more fundamental. It was as if every fiber of my being knew this was where I was supposed to go. Without hesitation, I let myself be carried away by the current of light. The sensation of movement was indescribable. I was traveling at incredible speed, but at the same time, I felt perfectly at peace. There was no fear, there was no discomfort, just a feeling of lightness and freedom that I had never experienced before. As I progressed through the tunnel, I began to hear sounds. At first, it was just distant, barely audible murmurs, but they soon turned into a heavenly symphony. It was music that couldn't be compared to anything I had ever heard on earth. Each note resonated with a purity and beauty that seemed to touch my very soul. As I traveled, I began to see glimpses of scenes from my life. Memories I thought I had long forgotten came vivid and clear. I saw myself as a baby in my mother's arms. I felt my father's pride when I learned to ride a bike. I relived the emotion of my first kiss. Each memory was imbued with a deeper understanding, as if I was seeing my life from a completely new perspective. As I approached the end of the tunnel, the light became brighter and brighter. It was a glare that should have been blinding, but somehow I could look directly at it without discomfort. And it was then that I saw him, a being of pure light, radiant and majestic, waiting for me at the end of the tunnel. When I finally emerged from the tunnel of light, I found myself in a place that defied all logic and earthly understanding. It was a vast, ethereal space, bathed in a soft, welcoming light. And there, waiting for me, was the being of light that I had glimpsed. He introduced himself as Gabriel. Its form was difficult to describe with earthly words. It was not exactly a physical body as we know it, but a luminous presence that radiated peace, wisdom, and unconditional love. His voice, when he spoke to me, was not a sound I heard with my ears, but something that reverberated directly into my soul. Gabriel greeted me with a warmth that made me feel immediately at ease. "Welcome, Ezekiel," he said. "You've had a long journey to get here." I was full of questions. Where exactly was I? What had happened to me? Was this the afterlife that so many religions talked about? Gabriel, with infinite patience, began to explain to me. "You are on a plane of existence beyond the physical," he said, "a place where time and space as you know them do not exist. You are not dead, Ezekiel, but you are not fully alive either. You stand on the threshold between worlds." Gabriel then took me to some kind of cosmic observatory. From there I could see Earth, a blue and green globe floating in vast space. But what caught my attention were the countless lights that covered its surface. "What are these lights?" I asked, amazed. "These are people's prayers and positive thoughts," Gabriel explained. "Each light represents a soul reaching the divine." As we watched, one light in particular began to shine more brightly than the others. It was like he was calling to me. "That," Gabriel said with a gentle smile, "is your mother's prayer. Even now she is praying for you, asking for your recovery." I was moved to realize my mother's love and devotion, visible even on this heavenly plane. It was at that moment that I began to understand that my journey here had a greater purpose. Gabriel then led me to an even more extraordinary place. It was like a cosmic amphitheater, where three beings of light, even more radiant than Gabriel, were waiting for us. His presence was so powerful that I felt completely humbled and in awe. It was then that I noticed another familiar presence. Next to the beings of light was my grandfather, Thomas North, who had passed away years before. Seeing him there, smiling at me with so much love, brought tears to my eyes. The three beings of light addressed me, their voices sounding like perfect harmony. "Ezekiel," they said, "you were brought here for a reason. You have a special gift, a gift that can help humanity in times of need." I was surprised and a little scared. What kind of gift could they be talking about? I was just an ordinary teenager, or so I thought. "Your gift, Ezekiel," they continued, "is the ability to see the future. But not just see. You will have the ability to interpret and act on these visions for the greater good." They then showed me a series of images of the future. I saw events that had not yet happened, some wonderful, some terrible. I've seen incredible technological advances, but I've also seen devastating natural disasters. I saw people coming together in solidarity, but I also saw conflicts and wars. By August 21, 2024, said the beings of light, significant events will occur. Some of them have the potential to cause great suffering. Your mission, Ezekiel, is to use your gift to help prepare humanity for these events. I was overwhelmed by the magnitude of this responsibility. How could I, a simple teenager, do something so important? As if reading my thoughts, my grandfather approached and placed his hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone on this journey, Zeke," he said with a reassuring smile. "We will always be here to guide and support you." Gabriel then turned to me. "Remember, Ezekiel, with great power comes great responsibility. Use your gift wisely and with compassion." At that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. I had been given not just a gift, but a mission that would shape not just my future, but potentially the future of all humanity. After receiving this extraordinary revelation, I felt a subtle change in the environment around me. The light began to gradually dim, and the heavenly presences began to fade. Gabriel approached me one last time. "It's time to go back, Ezekiel," he said in a gentle but firm voice. "Your journey on earth is not over yet. You have much work to do." I felt a mix of emotions, sadness at leaving this place of unconditional peace and love, but also a renewed determination to fulfill the mission I was given. Before I could say anything, I felt myself being pulled back. It was as if an invisible thread was tugging at me, dragging me back through the tunnel of light. The colors and sounds that had enchanted me on the way there now passed me by in a blur. Suddenly I felt a shock, as if I had been plunged into ice water. The pain that had disappeared during my out-of-body experience returned with a vengeance. I opened my eyes and found myself lying on a cold, hard stretcher. I was in the morgue. The fluorescent light above me was blinding, and the smell of cleaning products and formaldehyde was almost overpowering. I heard surprised voices and hurried footsteps. The doctors who had declared me dead now rushed to examine me, in disbelief at what they were seeing. My parents were called in a hurry. I vividly remember my mother's face, a mixture of shock and indescribable joy when she saw me alive. Her tears of relief and happiness reminded me of the light I had seen in the cosmic observatory. Her prayer had been answered. The days that followed were a whirlwind of medical exams, endless questions and a constant feeling of disorientation. The doctors couldn't explain how I had survived such a serious accident, much less how I had been resurrected in the morgue. In the months and years following my near-death experience, my life changed drastically. While outwardly I seemed to have miraculously recovered from the accident, internally I was struggling to process everything that had happened and understand what it meant for my future. The visions I received during my experience have not left me. They came in flashes, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in quiet moments during the day. At first it was scary and confusing. I saw snippets of future events, but I didn't know how to interpret them or what to do with this information. I decided to keep these visions a secret, at least initially. I was afraid people would think I was crazy if I started talking about seeing the future. Even so, I felt the weight of the responsibility given to me. How could I fulfill my mission of preparing humanity if I couldn't share what I knew? Feeling they could be the key to fulfilling my mission. It was during this search that I decided to become a chiropractor. I felt this profession would allow me to help people in a tangible way, while continuing to explore more esoteric healing methods. I dedicated myself to my studies with an intensity that surprised my teachers and colleagues. At the same time, I began to practice meditation and other techniques to fine-tune my sensitivity to the visions I received. Slowly, I learned to interpret the symbols and images I saw, to understand the messages that were being conveyed. However, this journey was not easy. There were moments of deep doubt, moments when I wondered if it was all just an elaborate fantasy created by my mind to deal with the trauma of the accident. But then something would happen. A prediction would come true, or I would be able to help someone in a way that seemed almost miraculous, and my faith would be renewed. As the years passed, I learned to balance my normal life as a chiropractor with my spiritual mission. I began to share my knowledge in subtle ways, incorporating the lessons I had learned into my healing work. And although it wasn't always easy, I felt like I was on the right path, fulfilling the purpose given to me on that fateful afternoon so many years ago. 17 years have passed since my first near-death experience. I was 34 years old, and my life seemed to finally be in balance. My practice as a chiropractor was successful, and I had found ways to incorporate my spiritual gift into my healing work. In my leisure time, I had developed a passion for flying small planes, an activity that gave me a sense of freedom similar to what I experienced during my spiritual journey. It was during one of these training flights that everything changed again. I remember standing at the controls of the plane, admiring the view of the clouds below me, when I suddenly started to feel faint. My vision became blurred and I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. I tried to fight the feeling of fainting that dominated me, but it was in vain. The last thing I remember was trying to engage the autopilot before everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital, surrounded by worried doctors and beeping medical equipment. Apparently, I had been found unconscious in the plane's cockpit after a successful emergency landing. A miracle in itself. The doctors informed me that they had discovered a shadow on my kidney and that I was suffering from severe anemia due to internal bleeding. As the doctors discussed treatment options, including chemotherapy, I felt something wasn't right. The same feeling I had before my first near-death experience began to wash over me. I tried to warn the doctors, but before I could say anything, I felt myself being pulled out of my body again. This time, there was no tunnel of light. Instead, I found myself instantly in a familiar place, the same ethereal realm where I had encountered Gabriel years ago. And there he was, waiting for me with a kind smile. "Welcome back, Ezekiel," he said. "Looks like we have more to discuss." I was surprised to realize that I felt no fear or confusion this time. It was as if a part of me had been waiting for this moment, knowing that my spiritual journey was not yet over. Gabriel then began to show me visions, not of the future this time, but of my own body. I saw the diseased cells in my kidney. I saw the internal bleeding that was weakening me, but I also saw something else, a golden light that seemed to emanate from within me, fighting the illness. "Your mission is not finished, Ezekiel," Gabriel said. "You still have a lot to learn and a lot to teach. But to do that, you need to heal yourself first. The healing you seek is not in drugs or surgery, but within yourself." With those words, I felt a wave of energy course through my being. It was as if every cell in my body was being recharged, revitalized. I understood then that this second near-death experience was not just a warning, but also a lesson in the true power of spiritual healing. When I returned to my body for the second time, I knew I had a difficult decision to make. Doctors were ready to begin aggressive treatment, including chemotherapy and possibly surgery. But Gabriel's words echoed in my mind. The cure I was looking for was within me. With a conviction that surprised everyone, including myself, I refused conventional treatment. The doctors were horrified. My family was worried, but I knew I had to follow the path I was shown. I began a holistic healing journey. I combined my knowledge of chiropractic with meditation, visualization, and energy healing practices. I completely changed my diet, focusing on whole and organic foods. I spent hours every day in deep meditation, visualizing the golden light I saw in my vision healing every cell in my body. It wasn't an easy path. There were days of intense pain, days when I doubted my decision. But with each passing day, I felt my body getting stronger, my mind clearer. 3 months after starting my own healing program, I returned to the doctors for further examinations. They were perplexed by the results. The shadow on my kidney had completely disappeared, and my blood levels had returned to normal. There was no sign of the anemia that almost killed me. The doctors couldn't explain my recovery. Some suggested that the initial diagnosis could have been a mistake. Others spoke of spontaneous remission, but I knew the truth. I had experienced firsthand the power of spiritual healing. This experience solidified my belief in the importance of a holistic approach to health and well-being. I realized that my mission was not only to prepare people for future events, but also to teach them about the healing power we all have within us. I began incorporating these healing techniques into my chiropractic practice. I taught my patients about the importance of the mind-body-spirit connection. I saw people recover from chronic illnesses. I saw pain that had persisted for years disappear. But I also understood that not all alternative practices are effective. Motivated by my own experience, I dedicated myself to investigating hundreds of alternative therapies. I spent almost all my savings on this search, even going to the brink of bankruptcy. In the end, I concluded that about 90% of these practices were ineffective or based on pseudoscience. But the ones that worked, those were truly transformative. This journey of healing and discovery has taught me the importance of discernment and patience. I learned that true healing takes time, that there are no magic solutions. But I also learned that when we open our minds and hearts to possibilities beyond what conventional science recognizes, miracles can happen. Now, looking back on my journey, I see how each experience, each challenge, prepared me to fulfill the mission entrusted to me. The 2 near-death experiences I experienced were not coincidences or accidents. They were callings, opportunities to awaken to a greater purpose. Through these experiences, I learned valuable lessons that I continue to share with everyone I meet. I learned that grief, although natural and necessary, should be limited. Excessive attachment to those who have departed can be emotionally damaging and impede our spiritual growth. I also learned about the importance of not hating. Hatred is a poison that corrodes our soul and can lead to negative cycles of reincarnation. Instead, we should practice forgiveness and compassion, even, and perhaps especially, toward those who have hurt us. My mission now is twofold. On the one hand, I continue to use my gift of seeing the future to help prepare people for the challenges ahead. The visions I have received about events leading up to August 21, 2024 continue to unfold, and I do what I can to guide and advise those who are open to listening. On the other hand, I am dedicated to teaching and practicing spiritual healing. Through my work as a chiropractor and the talks and workshops I offer, I share the techniques and insights I have gained on my journey. I encourage people to explore their own healing potential, connect with their spirituality, and pursue a holistic approach to health and well-being. It's not an easy path. I face skepticism and even ridicule from some, but I also meet people whose lives are transformed by the knowledge I share. I see hope in the eyes of those who discover their own inner power to heal, and that gives me strength to continue. My story is not over. I continue to learn, grow, evolve. Each day brings new opportunities to fulfill my mission, to help others, to prepare for what is to come. For those reading or listening to my story, I want to leave a message of hope. No matter what challenges you face, no matter how dark the future may seem, there is always light. This light is within you. You have the power to heal, to transform, to make a difference. I am available to those seeking guidance or healing. My journey taught me the importance of sharing what I learned. If my story can inspire even one person to explore their own spiritual potential, to seek inner healing, then I will have fulfilled my purpose. Remember, the future is not written in stone. We have the power to shape it with our actions, our choices, our thoughts. Together, we can create a future of hope, healing, and mutual understanding. This is my story. This is my mission. And I invite you to join me on this journey of discovery and transformation.